Welcome to Beanbag Saturday, and on today's episode, we're going to show you what it's like to be schizophrenic. In recent news, the actor who played Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, Jake Lloyd, was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So we thought we'd talk about it in today's episode and kind of share with you what it's like to be schizophrenic. But before we get there, we have a word of the day. And our word of the day is actually two words of the day, which are closely associated but do not mean the same thing. And the words are hallucination and delusion. Hallucination is the perception of something that is not actually present. And delusion, which is not the same thing, is the idiosyncratic belief which can be refuted by general or publicly accepted knowledge. So in general, you believe something that is contrary to common belief, to popular belief. And that can be refuted by tangible evidence. So that is the big difference between the two words, and we're going to talk about them more today.
We're actually going to focus on auditory hallucinations because that's something we can actually experiment with to give people an idea of what goes through a person's mind with schizophrenia with the auditory hallucinations, which are the more common symptom of it. For example, John Nash, portrayed in the movie Beautiful Mind, he actually deals with auditory hallucinations, which is different than the movie. The movie deals with the visual hallucinations. So I came up with some questions, some straightforward questions to ask Eric. And during that, I'm going to have Eric listen to many sounds and voices while I ask him those questions to see how focused he can be. And so, Eric, I'm going to have you answer as honest as you can for each question given to you. Obviously, not to any great extent, but just an honest answer. And you, the audience, are going to be able to see how Eric reacts while hearing those voices and me asking those questions and kind of see the disconnect that occurs. What is your name, Eric? What is 2 times 2 times negative 4 times 3?
Can you repeat the question, por favor?
What is 2 times 2 times negative 4 times 3?
And you will die.
Negative 48.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, rate your happiness. 1 being very unhappy.
Well, with how much I'm enjoying this, I'd say I'm in like an 8 or 9 happiness right now.
Okay. What month of year were you born?
You smell of ashes.
Sorry, go ahead.
What month and year were you born?
I love you smell of ashes.
And walking up the
What? Sorry.
And year.
Smell of ashes.
Year 1987.
magic pond
State your greatest pet
as
peeve.
you and I once walked in on time.
People doing the dishes wrong or stepping on in a water puddle with my socks.
Oh, don't run away.
Okay. List your 4
You're
favorite
gonna die.
hobbies.
Sexy.
I'll do this.
Okay,
You need to learn
my
your
4
lesson.
favorite hobbies are,
You shouldn't have come here.
I like doing YouTube
You're leaving
videos.
here alive.
Hello, Jack.
I like watching
Yes, sir.
TV and movies.
Can't do that, sir. Okay. Right away. Everyone.
I like
Device
Open the
connected.
door.
Just one more.
Open the
hobby.
door.
Drawing.
And there will be a
Okay.
price to
Open
pay
it.
Where do you
Door.
attend school?
for
Device
every
disconnected.
last
BYU
one
Idaho.
of them.
Open
Device lost.
Okay, I want you to
Open the
count to
door.
10 in
Sir.
Spanish.
But now they're
Open
gone.
the door.
Permission
And there
Open the
will
requested.
be
door.
a price
Okay.
to pay
Open the door.
Trash empty.
for every
Task
last
finished.
Do you have a
one of
specific
them.
phobia?
Move out of the way, stupid.
Heights.
Okay, I want you to count every odd. I want you to count every odd number.
3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 18.
Okay, now I want you to count down from 20 with every
I have a
even
thing
number
for
down to 0.
algorithms.
20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 0.
Name 7 states in the United States.
Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Colorado, Arizona, Utah, Idaho, New York. How many am I up to? Vermont, New Hampshire. I could keep going all day.
Okay.
Tennessee.
Okay, I want you
Alaska,
to
Hawaii.
I want you to follow the
Connecticut.
movement of my finger with only your eyes.
Okay. By the way, the auditory stuff stopped.
Okay, it just ended.
I'm cured.
Did it just end?
It did just end.
Eric, how was your experience?
Well, it's somewhere between enjoyable and like annoying at the same time. Like it was cool because it was kind of fun. Like there was a lot of weird stuff you put on. What? But it was like, shut the door. And Joe's like asking me like to talk about like all the odd numbers all the way up to 20. And like, it's like, shut the door. I'm like, and it's so great. Like, it was kind of fun in that regard. But at the same time, it was, it was hard to concentrate because the other stuff that I was like listening to was like so enjoyable and interesting. And I was like slightly curious as to like what Joe put in the auditory track anyway.
Yeah. It was like maybe 20 different voices and sounds I compiled together. The interesting thing about auditory hallucinations is there seems to be a connection with the part of your brain dealing with auditory. And so what you hear, you actually think you're hearing your thoughts. So that's different than delusion. Like, as if I'm speaking to you now, that's what you hear from the voices.
Yeah.
And so that can be a very frightening thing because with people with schizophrenia, although a large number of people with schizophrenia don't get violent, there are those who do, or those who may potentially injure themselves because they hear these voices telling them to do things that are wrong, are confusing. And also an interesting thing I'm sure that you noticed is when I would ask Eric a serious question, he'd start laughing at some points. And that's very typical of people with that. If you were talking with someone with paranoid schizophrenia with auditory hallucinations, it's very likely that they'll give you odd behavioral or odd facial features where they're laughing when you're saying something serious, or they're angry when you're saying something funny. And so it's a total disconnect. And schizophrenia is a very serious medical condition that can only be treated through antipsychotic medication as well as intense therapy.
Cool. Well, it was an experience unlike any other, and I hope that you enjoyed it. We hope that you enjoyed it and stuff, and we're grateful to have you with us on the show today. And with that, I think we're done.
It was a pleasure to be with you guys, and we'll see you next episode.